Good day, everyone. We are the group 4, and our topic is all about the virtue ethics, Kant and rights theorists, and utilitarianism. And we know that virtue ethics is very important to ourselves, especially as students na dapat naatay mga ethics na ipakita dili ra pud sa atong kaugalingon pati pod sa laing tao. So, the introductions. So, here we are. We talk about the definitions of virtue ethics. It is a character-based ethics. Yes, tinuod. It is based to our character kung unsa nato tratuhon ang usa ka tao or mismo pod sa atong kaugalingon kay ug wa tay ethics nga himo sa atong kaugalingon, buot pasabot, we don't have also an ethics sa ubang tao. Then, also it is a right act, is the action of virtuous person would do in the same circumstances. From the word right act, so maayong mga buhat, mao ni ang virtue ethics. It is not only deals with the rightness or wrongness of individual actions, but it provides guidance as the sort of characteristics and behaviors a good person will seek to achieve. So, dili ra ni siya nag-deal sa rightness or wrongness. Nag-provide po ni siya as a guidance nato, whether we do bad things or we do a good things. So, usa po ni siya kagiya nato. Then, we have also here a historical origins of virtue ethics by Aristotle and Confucius, etc. So, virtue ethics began with Socrates and was subsequently developed further by Plato, Aristotle, and Stoics. I don't know what is the right pronunciation with this name, but I think it is Stoics. And Plato and Aristotle's statement, Plato said that believes virtue is effectively an end to be sought, for which a friend might be useful means. Then also Aristotle said that virtue functions are more as means to safeguard human relations, particularly authentic friendship, without which one quest for happiness and frustrated. So, it is all about the functions of human relations. So, mao ni ang buot pasabot nila sa virtue ethics. And there are 4 cardinal virtues of Plato's Republic. We have wisdom, justice, fortitude. Well, fortitude, it is the courage in pain. So, dinhi nimo makita kung kani si nga tao is nasakitan or unsa ba. Then, temperance, your control. Kung makontrol ba, sa virtue, dinhi nimo makita kung unsa or asa dapit ka mo pagawa sa imong temper. Like for example, ikaw grabe nakakasuko. So, imong unsaon imong pagkontrol sa imong kaugalingon kay aron dili po ka makasakit sa ubang tao. So, mao ni gitawag og temperance or how you control yourself para sa other. Then, however, most theorists agree that morality comes as a result of intrinsic virtue. These are the common link that unites the disparate normative philosophies into the field known as virtue. Then, we also have here a focus on character and virtues. So, letter C na ta nga discussion. It is a central focus in this chapter is developing virtues. So, unsa may buot pasabot anang developing virtues? So, developing virtues mo ani ang pagdevelop kung unsa pa ang mga virtues nga naa nimo nga kailangan pang ipakita nimo nga wala pa nimo na ipakita sa uban or sa mismo sa imong kaugalingon. Mao nang naa kay developing virtues. Also, it is the vices living well and being good person. So, when we talk about the virtue, ethics, or virtue, para sa akong giingon datong una nga, it is a right act. Right act siya. So, since nga right act man, so it is conclude that kailangan it is a good person gajud ang kuan sa virtue ethics. And then one is the good life according to Aristotle. So usa ni ka mga characteristics of virtue, no, the good life according to Aristotle. He believed that what we pursue is happiness, and a happy life is an ultimate good that humans seek. So kung ikaw masulupon, so ang imong perspective sa imong kinabuhi is unhappy, dili sa ingon og puro positive ang naa sa sud nimo kundi negativity. And ang buot pasabot din ni Aristotle is ning believe siya kung happy ka, you have a ultimate good and human seek to others and also to yourself. Mo ni buot pasabot sa the good life according to Aristotle. Napa? Happiness in Greek term used by Aristotle is eudaimonia. So, eudaimonia is variously translated as happiness, flourishing, and well-being. So, ang buot pasabot sa eudaimonia or Greek word na nabuo ni Aristotle is happiness or flourishing and well-being. So, mo tang giingon, if you're happy, you have a ultimate good that human seek to others and also within yourself. Then second is the good life according to Buddhism. So, usa po ni siya ka characteristic sa virtue. Then, it must be said that Buddhist ethics begins with an observations about human lives. So, lahi po ni siya kay kung ang kang Plato is to develop, di ba? Ang sa Buddhism pod is observe. So ijang i-observe kung about what is the human lives, about what is the human lives virtue ethics nga gibuhat or ginabuhat kada adlaw. Then insight about the natures of life is Buddhism. So first noble truth na adinhi sa second ning mga noble, no, nga nabuo naa sa the good life according to Buddhism, na dinhi ang mga third noble nga nabuo. Una is the first noble truth, dukkha, translated as dissatisfactions and suffering. So mao ni ka usa ni ka insight or panglantaw na dissatisfactions ang unang noble nga nabuo or suffering. Then second noble is identify the source of dukkha, kung asa nagikan ang imong virtues sa imuhang kaugalingon. Then it identifies the attachment, ignorance, and hatred constitute the three poison. So, like, parehas akong giingon ganiha, nga ang second novel identifies the source of dukkha, kung asa dapit or asa nabilong ang imong kuan. Like, for example, kaning attachment, ignorance, or hatred, usama na ka nagikan ang imong virtue, then kung ingana ba ka. And then third noble truth, you can decrease dukkha by renouncing or rejecting in terms of the three poison, we should pursue wisdom. So, kana nga dukkha nga nabuhat nimo sa third noble of truth, pwede na nimo i-decrease. Why? Nganong pwede man po nimo siya i-reject? Why? Tungod kay to avoid the attachment and ignorance and hatred nga naa sa second noble. Mao nay important nga citation sa third noble of truth nganong kailangan naman nato ang i-decrease ang duka, while duka is a negative word sa dinhiya sa the good life according to Buddhism. So sa third noble truth nganong need man nato i-decrease to avoid the attachment of ignorance and hatred sa second noble truth. Okay? So, anhin na punta sa number 3, we have the exemplar of virtuous person. So, it identifies or it defines that an ethics approach that tells story as a kind of role model. So, from the word role model, so kita as a person, di man jud na nato malikayan sa atong kinabuhi nga usa bata ka good role model sa tanan or usa bata ka bad model sa uban, di ba? Like for example, matawag na to ang mga good role model, isa na ang atong kinang hero sa Pilipinas. They're the one who fought the battles against the Spaniards or kinsa pa tong mga nagsakop sa ato sa una. So gitawag na sila nato og mga kind of role model tungod pud sa ilang mga hiyas nga naangkon. Nga syempre karon mao nang naatay freedom, mao nang naatay kanang good communication sa government nato, mao nang democracy ta, because tungod ra pud nila and they are the one nga usa nato dapat modelo. So dapat may atong ikaw amita sa atong kagalingon nga dili sa ingon og sundugon sila, but we have our own man jud uniqueness. So ang ato lang is magbuhat ta og maayo para pod baski gamay lang para may pakita pod nato sa uban ug mao po ilang sundugon. Okay? So anhin na ta sa kay concepts of virtue ethics. So we have here a topic of moral virtues, eudaimonia, mao na to hong giingon nga happiness, di ba? Then the golden mean and virtue balance. So una ta sa moral virtues. Moral virtue said that those qualities or states of character that find expressions in morally good actions and morally good purposes or intentions. Good actions and morally good purposes or intentions. Mao na ang moral virtues. So, naa kay good intentions nga I think pasabot na naman po na ninyo nga if you have a good moral virtues, you have also a good intentions. Dili ra sa imong kaugalingon kundi para pud sa uban. Okay? So, we have also a formula moral virtues, prudence, justice, temperance, and courage. So, usa na sila ka mga virtues of moral nga makatabang para nato. So, we have also here a goal of moral virtues. The quest to understand and live a life of moral character. Live a life of moral character means nindot magpudyo sa pangkaugalingon nimo kung ikaw wa kay gitamakan nga tawo. Kung ikaw usa ka good role model sa uban, sumo ni buot pasabot sa live a life of moral character. Okay? So we have here eudaimonia. Di ba ni ingon ko ninyo last baguhay pa that eudaimonia, according to Aristotle, it is the variously translated is happiness, flourishing, and well-being. So dinhi apod nagtopic pud si eudaimonia as happiness and flourishing. The good of the agent and the good of others are not two separate aims. So, mao ni buot pasabot sa eudaimonia. Next topic is the golden mean and virtuous balance. So, the golden mean na topic na po na siya sa mga past presenter, but i-recall na lamang po nila siya. So, it is the finding balance between two means. It is between the deficiency and excess. So, dinhi ka magtimbang-timbang if kini ba buhaton nimo sa sakto or sa dili. Mao nang naa kay a guide for making decisions. Mao na dinhi ang golden mean of virtuous balance. Kay di ba kita tao is namo pud tay mga lapses sa kinabuhian. Dili man gud na makalikaya nato. So ang atong buhaton is timbangon kung what is the right. Matud pa nila na apoy good lies and na bad lies, but we choose to have we choose na sakto pod kay aron dili pud ta makasakit sa atong ubang tao. Mao na gitaw og pag-balance. Mao nang between deficiency and excess. Okay? Then behavior, courage, honor, justice, prudence, generosity, and so on. So, usa po ni ka mga behavior na naa sa golden mean and virtue balance. So, ang hinata sa topic 3, which is the virtue ethics versus other ethical theories. So, we have a comparison na sa virtue ethics and ethical theories. So, A, contrasting virtue ethics and with deontology and utilitarianism. Deontology, I think, mauto ang harang i-recall, wa ko sure if sakto ba, basta ang deontology, ang boto sa ani is na makaka in a good way. Kanang dili nimo tan-awon kung kana ba siya is basta imong tan-awon mo kani siya is good lie ba para makaadyo sa ubang tao. Mao ni ang deontology. Okay? So, a utilitarian will point to the fact that the consequences of doing so will maximize well-being. A deontologist to the fact that in doing so that agent will be acting in accordance with a moral rule such as do unto others as you would be done by, and a virtue ethicist to the fact that helping the person would be charitable or benevolent. So kung ikaw ang kita bisan kay once nga mutabang ta usahay kay atong tan-aw nga naa pa ba ni kapalit or wala, which is wrong po na nga atong maanay atong hunahunahon. Kay once we help other people, dapat kinasing-kasing jud, diba? Mo nang naay the fact that helping the person would be charitable or benevolent. Kung kani ba siya is man ang sa utilitarianism, kung kani ba siya is kanang makakuan po kaani kung kutabangan ba kaaning tao or dili nga na. So mao ni ang sa utilitarian point niya. So while virtue ethics may give more weight to consequences, it is also primarily focused on the development of moral character, and deontology is concerned with finding moral rules. So another topic is the emphasis on agent-centered morality. So, the view that the person's situations of agent, together with their personal desires and project, gives rise to genuine moral restrictions and goal. Example, a 7-year-old who bites her little brother, then lies about to escape punishment. So, sabot ana. Ang ija ko nung 7-year-old brother or little brother lies about to escape punishment. Ibali, ijang gipaak ang ijang igsuon nga laki, actually kana sadya mao manay binuhatan nato sa una mga gagmay pa bangtang bata, once nga mohilak na siya nga atong gipaak or mapasakitan o pangutan untas atong ginikanan for the safety to ourselves, ang atong buhaton is ang pamakak to escape the punishment. Manibuot pasabot dinhi asa example or sa emphasis of agent-centered morality. Kanang mo escape bitaw ka sa truth kay gusto nimog maluwas ka. Like for example, another is kanang cheating. Okay? Perminti na nato makuanan nga ang cheating is dili jud good as atong pairalon, diba? So baski nasakpan na ka sa usabaron ka teachers or instructor or masking sa personal lang sa imong ginikanan ba, mo deny ka kay daghan magong klase sa cheating, and mo deny ka for your safety, maski dili ka palaagon diyan ning laag ka kay gusto man lagi ka makakuan, usa na po na sadya ka cheating sa imong parents, then magdakag pangan baron or mayon kagwa ra ka nang muan ingana to avoid the punishment nga ilang buhaton nimo kay daghang silang consequences nga pwede ba nga kana po undangon ka or unsay bay buhaton ingana. So manay buot pasabot sa emphasis of agent-centered morality. So that would be my end of my reports about the introductions of virtue ethics. I hope you understand our reports, and thank you.
Virtue ethics in practices. There are three under of it, and it is moral exemplars and role models, developing virtuous character, and applying virtue ethics to ethical dilemmas. In moral exemplars and role models, perform actions that are above and beyond the call of duty. In some way, their exemplary conduct has become second nature. For insights about one person can find the actions of another person so inspirational that the person attempts to reproduce the behavior. Second is the developing virtuous character. Virtues are developed through learning and through practice. By practicing being honest, brave, just, and generous to a person, develop an honorable and moral character. And suggested by Aristotle, a person can improve his or her character by practicing self-discipline. A good character can corrupted by repeated self-indulgence. Lastly is the applying virtue ethics to ethical dilemmas. It has 4 principles: the meaning of life, the place of reason, the role of emotion, and the role of motivation. It encourages moral agents to take accounts of and express the pain and regret they may experience when negotiating solution to tragic dilemmas. 5. The critics and challenges of virtue ethics. Cultural variability in virtues. Different cultures may prioritize and value certain moral or ethical qualities differently, important for cross-cultural communication and cooperation, and the lack of clear guidance for action. One of these are emphasis on character, contextual morality, lack of concrete principle, subjectivity of virtue, and virtue development. C. Compatibility with modern ethical issues. Virtue doesn't provide strict rules for resolving ethical dilemmas. However, it may require adaptation and integration with other ethical theories to address conflicting issues effectively. This can be compatible with addressing contemporary ethical challenges, such as environmental ethics, business ethics, technological ethics, social justice, healthcare ethics. In number 6, contemporary approaches to virtue ethics. Under of this is the virtue ethics in professional ethics, the virtue ethics and applied ethics, and lastly, the cross-cultural perspective on virtue. In virtue ethics in professional ethics, key points of how virtue ethics applies to professional ethics, which is the emphasis on character, ethical role models, ethical decision making, lifelong learning and improvement, community and relationship, balancing conflicting virtues. In virtue ethics and applied ethics, virtue ethics is a normative ethical theory that focuses on the moral character of individuals, while applied ethics is a branch of ethics that deals with specific moral dilemmas and issues in various fields and domains such as medicine, business, environment, and technology. In cross-cultural perspective in virtue involves exploring different cultures, prioritize and practice virtues such as courage, honesty, kindness, and integrity, and how these virtues may vary or overlap in various cultural texts.
So conclusion, not only deals with rightness or wrongness, but it provides guidance as the sort of characteristics and behaviors a good person will seek to achieve. So virtue is very important as it provides a moral foundation. So let us now move on to the introductions to Kantian ethics, or also means the deontological normative theory, which is to say, he rejects the rightness of an action is a function of how fruitful its outcome. Next is Immanuel Kant and his ethical philosophy. So si Immanuel Kant is usa ka German philosopher who is widely considered to be one of the most influential thinkers of all time. So ang iyang trabaho nga ethics, metaphysics, and epistemology has had a profound impact on Western philosophy ug na-continue gihapon ni nga gistudihan o ginadebate sa karon. So Kant's ethical philosophy motong deontological nga focuses on the rightness or wrongness of actions on their consequences. So si Immanuel Kant ning tuo siya nga naay certain moral rules that are universally binding. So maunang natay duty to follow these rules regardless sa unsa may mo kanang unsay outcome nila. So next is central concepts. Ay nay 3 parts ang central concept: the categorical imperative, the autonomy, and the duty. So categorical imperative is the moral principle that commands individual to act according to maxims or rules that could be universally applied without contradiction. So ang example sa categorical imperative is the maxim nga do not lie. So kaning maxim can be universalized because it would be contradictory to lie if everyone lied. So kung ang tanan mo'y manghinambog, then no one would believe anyone else and communication would break down. Another example is do not steal. So kaning maxim can also be universalized because it would be contradictory also. Because kay if everyone stole ug ang uban mangawat ang uban, then there would be no property rights and people would be constantly afraid of being robbed. So here are some additional examples of how to apply the categorical imperative to real world situations. So examples is you are considering cheating on an exam. So pangutan-on nimo imong kaugalingon. So kung gusto ka nga ang tanan is mag-cheat sa exam, then you should if you would not want everyone else to cheat sa exam, then you should not cheat yourself. Another is you are considering stealing something from a store. So pangutanon nimo imong kaugalingon if you would want everyone else to steal from stores. So kung gusto ka na ang uban is mangawat, then you should not steal yourself. So the categorical imperative is a powerful moral principle that can help us to make good decisions. So however, it is important to remember that it is not a perfect guide and there will always be situations where we need to use our kaugalingon nga judgments. Next is autonomy. So autonomy, individuals should act based on a rational self-determination rather than external influences or desires. Also, the autonomy defines the ability to make one's own decision and to act independently of outside control. So it is a fundamental right and a key component of personal freedom. So here is examples of autonomy. Anang mamili ka unsa imong suoton. So when you choose your own clothes, you are exercising your autonomy. Kay you are not being controlled man by sa bisag kinsa, and you are expressing your own individuality. Next, deciding what to eat. So kung mupili ka kaugalingon nimong meals, you are exercising your autonomy. You are not being told kung unsay imong kaunon. So autonomy is very important. Kaya nga naman, it is because it allows us to live our lives in accordance with our own values and beliefs. It is also allows us to learn and grow from our experiences. Nang walay magbuot nimo, walay magbuot ninyo.
When we are autonomous, we are free to explore our own potential and to make a difference in the world. So next is duty. Argues that moral actions are those done out of a sense of duty. Rather than mere inclination or desire, one should act from a sense of duty to uphold the moral law. Another definition of duty is refers to an obligation or responsibilidad that one has to fulfill. Pwede siyang moral, legal, or contractual in nature. Duties are often associated with specific roles or positions, such as duty nimo sa imong parent, such as duty sa usa ka parent nga mag-atiman sa iyang anak, duty sa usa ka police officer to uphold the law. So, here are examples of duties in different contexts. Motong a parent's duty to their child. So, a parent has a moral, legal, and contractual duty to provide for their child's needs, including the food, ang pinuy-anan, ang education, ug ang medical care. Next is, another example is a doctor's duty sa iyang pasyente. So, a doctor has a moral and legal duty to provide their patients with care that is competent, compassionate, and confidential. So, duties are very important, Jude, because they help to ensure that people behave in a responsible and ethical manner. They also help to protect our rights and freedom. Right theorists. So, right theorists focus on the concept of rights that should be respected, often based on principles of justice and fairness. So, right theorists also define as argue that rights are important. So, sa right theories, dere na, sa tawagan na, gi-argue nga, ang rights ko no, ang imong rights is important because dere gi-protekta ang each individuals protect from harm and promote their well-being. They also argue that rights are necessary for a just and free society. So, na different number of right theories, but they all share the common belief that the rights are fundamental moral entitlements that all individuals possess. So, right theories are kanang importante for kanang understanding the moral legal basis of human rights. So, they provide a framework for evaluating claims of rights and for developing new human right norms. So, next is the categorical imperative. So, naa diri nasud ang formulations of the categorical imperative. First is the formula of universal law. Act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become universal law. So another definition of formula of universal law is one of the most important concept ni Immanuel Kant sa iyang moral philosophy. So dere gi-state that we should only act on maxims that we can will to become universal law. So in other words, we should only do things that we would be willing for everyone else to do na parihara po the same situation. So to apply the formula of universal law, we need to first i-identify sa nato ang maxim of our proposed actions. A maxim is simply a rule that guides our behavior. For example, so if I am considering lying to my friend, nang hinambog ko sa akong friend, so in order to kanang dili ko maapil bitaw sa trouble, so my maxim might be, ay okay ra nang magbinutbot sa akong friends para makalayo ko sa kanang gubot. So once I have identified my maxim, so akong pangutanon akong kagalingon whether I would be willing for everyone else to act on that maxim. So akong pangutanon akong kaugalingon kung Omonto, willing for everyone to act on that maxim. So in this case, I would not want everyone to lie. So sa kanina case, so dili ko gusto nga kanang manundog bitaw na ako nga manginambog sa sila sa ilang mga barkada nga aron makaiwas sa trouble. So let's consider another example. Suppose I am thinking about stealing a book from library. So magunahon ako mangawat ako libro sa library. So my maxim might be I okay ra mangawat og libro sa library if I don't get caught. So however, if everyone acted on this maxim, libraries would not be able to function. They would run out of books and people would be afraid to donate books because kanang mahadlok sila makawatan. Next is formula of humanity. So formula of humanity, act in such a way that you treat humanity whether in your own person or in the person of any other, never merely as a means to an end. So example of formulation of humanity. So a person is considering lying to their employer in order to get a promotion. So lying would be treating the employer as a means to an end, as a way to get what the person wants. So however, ang employer is a person who deserves to be treated with honesty and respect. Next is formula of autonomy. Formula of autonomy states that we should act only on those maxims that we can conceive as having a place in a public and universal systems of law. So example, a person is considering making a promise nga dili nila kayang taguan. So making a false promise would be acting on a maxim that cannot be universalized, as it would undermine the institution of promises altogether. So these formulations guide individuals in determining whether their actions are morally permissible and are foundational to Kantian ethics. So next is universalizability and moral rules. So it means that plays a significant role in the formulation and evaluation of moral rules. So universalizability, meaning that you should act according to maxim or a personal principle or rule, only if you can conceive of that maxim become a universal law without generating contradiction. So in context of moral rules, universalability guides the creations and assessment of ethical principles. So number 1, formulate the moral rule. You have to define the rule you want to assess. So for example, do not lie. Next is universalize the maxims. Always lie. So magresulta ni siya sa kanang ang where the truth is never be spoken. So trust is impossible and communication collapses, which is contradictory and thus morally impermissible. Next is examples and applications. So the ontological ethics, moning mga ethical decisions nimo. Next is human rights, human dignity, political philosophy, perpetual peace, bioethics, medical decision making, and issues of moral status of your patients. Next is business ethics, practicing moral duty of corporation and individuals. Then environmental ethics, moral duty sa environment to protect environment. Then criminal justice, support of the idea that punishment should be based on moral principles and worth of individuals, not just utilitarian considerations. Next is medical ethics, the human subject respecting individual autonomy and dignity. Next is privacy and data ethics, respecting your personal data. Last is ethical framework, emphasizes the universality of ethical principles.
Good day, everyone. My topic is right theories. So, historical development of right theories. So, classical antiquity, concept of natural rights and justice. And then, ang medieval and Renaissance period, mo ni siya ang rights of individuals. Then, pagka 17th and 18th centuries, i-develop ang right theories. So, ang American Revolution, unalienable rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And then sa French Revolution, nag-declare of rights of man, of the citizens, asserted principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity. And then pagka 19th century, mo ni ang women's rights, labor rights, and the abolition of slavery. So pagka 20th century na pod, mo na ni ang universal human rights. So that should be protected globally. So agkatong sa French Revolution of 19th century, di ba nagkuan sila og nag-declare sila og about sa rights of man. And then pagka 19th century mo na to nagkuan po sila og women's right. So kay tungod sa siguro kuan kay naiuban nga mga laki kana ang mga buotan bitaw unja na puy uban mga badge nga mga kuan pod nasa sakto. So himo na raman og human rights. So contemporary development discussion of cultural relativism. So mo ano ni nagkuan na ang abot na ang LGBTQ. And then last, rights and digital rights. So di lang sa badge o sa laki ang naay rights, pero ang sa karon na henerasyon kay na may bakla og tumboy. So mao to mo nang nagkuan sila og about sa LGBTQ. So next is feminist and critical theories. So nagkuan na po sila og traditional right theories. And then environmental rights, so about ni sa mga rights of natures. So human rights and moral entitlements. So in Kantian ethics, the concept of human rights and moral entitlements is deeply rooted in the fundamental principles of human dignity, autonomy, and rationality. And then sa Kantian ethics, human dignity and autonomy, si Kant nag-argue that every individual possesses inherent worth or dignity. And then sa iyang autonomy, si Kant nag-emphasize the concept of autonomy, which refers in the ability of individual to act according to self-imposed moral laws or rational principles. And then sa categorical imperative and universality, so parehas sa gihap na siya, pero iyang i-introduce ni Kant ang categorical imperative nga ang central concept in the moral philosophy. Then ang iyang universality means nag-derive siya sa universality principle of the categorical imperative. So sa respect for person, treat others as ends not means. So si Kantian ethics emphasize the importance of treating others with respect and dignity. According to Kant, individuals should always be treated as ends in themselves, merely as means and ends. So for example, karon ang hintahay mo kuan diri sa Philippines na ay mo bisita, diba ang kasagaran gajud kay kita nga mga Pinoy mo respeto man ta, lalo na kung inig makita nato sila, inig makisalamuhan nato sila, di ba, mo respeto man jud ta, the way na mingon ta og good morning, good afternoon, mo smile pod. So mao na ang dapat. So dapat gyud respect sa atong respect for persons siya. So moral entitlements. So Kantian ethics asserts that individuals have moral duties that correspond to the rights of others. So application of human rights. So human rights as universalizable maxims. So ibig sabihin ang maxims is expressions. So human rights such as the right of freedom of speech. So kita kay naang dito freedom of speech, not only kanang sala kundi na ang puti kaugalingon natin freedom of speech. And then about din sa religion na to, namang uban nga lahi ang religion pero na sila yung mga kaugalingon pud na expression o naa sila kaugalingon ug unsay ilahang kana ang gusto sa ilahang religion nga na ay uban nga na nay mga saktong gipamaraan nila about sa religion nila dyan apoy uban nga mas grabe ang ilahang pagduma sa ilahang religion. And then sa next pod ang atong privacy. So naang jud kaugalingong privacy nay uban nga di na nila kuan nay uban nga magpataka na raman og kana ang sulti manang makaingon pud ka nga ang privacy dili na nato makuan kay kasagaran ng mga issue moabot na ang mga issue sa kuan nga bisag dili mao magpataka rag istorya about sa uban. So kuanan pud nato ng atong privacy, di nato kuanan ang atong sa freedom of speech nato. And then balancing rights and responsibilities. So si Kantian ethics idyang gibalance between rights and responsibilities is rooted in the fundamental principles of autonomy, moral duty, and respect for a person. So next is contrasting Kantian ethics with utilitarianism. So basis of morality si Kantian ethics is deontological, meaning it is duty based. According to Kant, actions are inherently right or wrong regardless of their consequences. So sa utilitarianism is a consequentialist theory asserting that the morality of action determined by its consequences. So agkato ang sa Kantian ethics niya ag ijang gi-based adto is actions inherently, and then ang utilitarianism is asserting that has morality of an action. And then sa focus, si Kantian ethics nag-focus siya sa inherent nature of actions, while ang utilitarianism nag-focus siya sa outcomes of actions. And then sa Kantian ethics sa universality mo ra gihapon siya ang iyang concept is universality gihapon. Actions are moral permissible, so naa siya mo allowed siya if they can be consistently conduct or serve as a universal law without generating contradiction. So iyang utilitarianism is does not rely, so dili siya mo conduct or serve sa universality. So the next is focus deontological. So deontology emphasizes the importance of moral duties and principles in guiding ethical decision making. So first is duty-based ethics. So duty-based ethics teaches that some acts are right or wrong because of the sorts of things they are and people have a duty to act accordingly regardless of a good or bad consequences that may be produced. So example ani is, if we take right to live, in this right we have a right to live, but then we are placing a duty on others. They should not kill us. So kung gusto mo na to mo kuanta mo kuanta sa atong right para kuan ra ta to live, so dapat ang ato pong right is sakto gyapon siya, no, di ba? So next is categorical imperative. Commands or moral laws all person must follow regardless of their desires or extenuating circumstances. So example ani, you should not kill, you ought to help these ends, or do not steal. So dapat kita di ta mo kuan og kanang magpakanag ta, di ta mo patay sa usa ka tawo. So dapat di pud ta mo mangawat, kaya na ang message ay mga laws na ba na sila mga commands. So pag once na mo kuan ka na, so makulong ka, mapapilit ka, makulong ka. So next is moral rules. Do not kill, do not lie, do not commit adultery. So diba, hindi ta mo kuan og mga ina. So next is non-consequentialist, a type of normative ethical theory that denies that the rightness or wrongness of our conduct is determined solely by the goodness or badness of the consequences of our acts or of the rules to which those acts conform. So example ani is never kill an innocent person. So dapat dili ta magpatakataka og patay sa usa ka tawo kung innocent man dahil siya. So dili ta magpatakag patayan nila, lalo na ug di pud ta mamaka kung dili pud to tinuod, diba? So agent-centered maura gihapon, killing innocent person diyan kuan. So the next is kuan natay mga ethical thinkers and Kantianism. So first is si Christine Kosgard. So si Christine Kosgard is contemporary philosopher. Influential book, The Sources of Normativity. She focused on developing and defending Kantian ethical theories. And then next is si Thomas Nagel, is an American philosopher. Famous works is the essay, What Is It Like to Be a Bat? His book, The View from Nowhere. So next is Barbara Herrmann, is a philosopher. She has explored themes related to autonomy, moral reasoning, and the foundation of ethics. And then si Honora O'Neill is a philosopher and ethicist, known for her significant contributing to moral and political philosophy. And then she works extend to topics such as bioethics, human rights. And then si T.M. Scanlon, T.M. is Thomas, is a prominent American philosopher specializing in moral and political philosophy. In his influential work, When We Awake to Each Other. So then last is John Rawls, was an American philosopher. Influential work, A Theory of Justice, developed his ideas in subsequent works including political liberalism. So the last topic is Kantian ethics and legal and political philosophy. So individual rights and autonomy. Example, every adult person has a right to be involved in decision that affects them. So ang autonomy is nag-independence. So we need to be freedom of. And then the next is universality and legal principles. Example, act only on that maxims through which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Means act in such a way that you always treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other. So mo pa siya ang do not kill or do not break promises, lalo na sa imong nauyab, di ba? Ang kasagaran mga jud, lalo na kana ang namoy adtuon unja common insulti ka nga love mga tataan ng kuan na lugara. So ag imho pong uyab ingon pod nga mga to lagi ta pohon. So kana ang kuan nagpromise na siya nga mga tumuan ng time. So dapat dili nimo ma-break ng promises. So next is duty and the rule of law, and then political legitimacy. So ang kuan ani niya is lalo na for example kana ang musakay taog kana ang musakay og sakyanan nga na ay seat belt. So dapat ana ang kuan gyud ana kasagaran sa mga kuan kay mao nay ang issue sa mga pulis kay ang mag seat belt gyud kay once na makuanan ka na adjust time nga intahay for example kana ang wa kasabot karong pandawan diyo ka nag seat belt diya mo kalit rag ka na ang kuan nga nay mahitabo ni wa kasabot nga naa din na mahitabo ninyo so diya wa pa gyud ka nag seat belt adto so ibig sabihin adto dili gyud mo nang time nga makuanan gyud kanang dapat para makuan ta protektahan nato tong kaugalingon so dapat mag seat belt ta kanang nang nagmusakay tag mga taxi or kanang mga sakyanan nga dapat kuanan. So next is cosmopolitanism. So cosmopolitan having wide international sophistication. So example ani is tahay mo adto kag ibang bansa, daghan na kag naadtuan nga ibang bansa. So siyempre ag imong makuan ana ang mga inspector lang ang na mga gipangsulti na nimo kantigo na ka ana nga kanang language anang lugara. So ang imong makuan ana nakantig mo na ang ibig sabihin sa cosmopolitan so na anak kay comfortable ka na ana musulti kun kanang familiar na ka ana umukuan nga lugara kanang kahibaw na ka anang mga different na nga culture and people sumara ang butsag anang cosmopolitan. So si Immanuel Kant's political writings, the last is si Kant argued that it was always wrong to lie because if one were to lie it would effectively endorse lying for everyone, and this would violate people's rational autonomy. So kani gud pag once na mag-lie gud ka sa katawo, so ibig sabihin ang ijahang masulti ko sa uban nga basin masulti ko sa lain si Jazz, so ag na mali na ikaw ra po na mali ko na ijahang pag-isulti ko sa ubang tao. So daghang maapektuhan ana lalo na ikaw number 1 ka na naapektuhan kay nang-lie na ganing ka sa usa ka tawo nang-lie ko siya sa usa ka tawo so na daghan na kuan naapektuhan na ibang tao na mali ang issue ng di kuan paratang. So that's all, thank you.
So my topic is all about critics and challenges of Kantian ethics. So it is the continuation report of Ms. Ogdok. Tension between duty and compassion. So what is duty? Duty refers to a moral or legal obligation to do something. It is often involves following a set of rules or fulfilling responsibilities. While compassion, it involves feelings of empathy, care, and concern for others, often leading to action to alleviate their suffering or difficulties. So there are 4, which Kantian ethics emphasis on duty, moral law, and rational principles, which can create tension with the concept of compassion. So one is impartiality versus personal relationship. So what is impartiality? Impartiality refers to the ability to make fair and unbiased decisions without favoring any particular individual or group. It involves treating everyone equally, irrespective of personal feelings, biases, or relationships. So impartiality na unbiased, walay gidapigan, fair and equal. So personal relationship, on the other hand, involves a connection or bond between individuals based on emotions, shared experiences, or mutual interests. This relationship can influence how one perceives or interacts with someone else. So, una ba siya kay personal relationship sa laing tao, no? Makainom niyo ka nga close. So, nakay connection dali-dali ra nimo na siya matuo or ma-convince na tayo ikatuuhan inana. So 2 is moral worth of action. The moral worth of an action refers to its ethical value or the goodness attributed to it based on moral principles, virtues, or ethical theories. It's an evaluation of whether an action is considered morally right, just, or virtuous. So various factors contribute to determining the moral worth of an action, such as its intent. So no, makaingin ka og tinod anay bagay ng India. Depende na po na sa iyong purpose. So, makaingon ka og ninakasa ni mong tao. Magsuri ni mo. So, makaingon jud ka og tinod anay ng India kay nag-effort na siya magsuri. So, matang sila siya padugay nga mas modako ang away. Next is balancing compassion with universality. Balancing compassion with universality. Balancing compassion with universalizability involves navigating between empathy and fairness while considering broader principles that apply universally. Compassion, rooted in empathy and care for others, often guides actions based on the immediate needs and emotions of individuals. However, universality focuses on principles or actions that can be applied universally to all individuals in similar situations, ensuring fairness and consistency in moral decision making. So compassion, kung ano siya, mga emotions, individuals, so kita isang katao, naman tayo different emotions. So, while ang universality is talking about universal, tanang yung tao, fairness, bias in making a moral decision. 4 is potential resolution. Finding resolution between duty and compassion often involves seeking a middle ground that respects both obligations and empathetic considerations. So, mga kasagarang potential resolution if na-tension sa isip katawo, daganan kayo na. So, one of the example of potential resolution between tension sa duty and compassion, like communication and negotiation. So, kung naman yung tension, communication na gano'n ang makaadyo. Communication, good na communication, wala ipagsingit ka ng hapsay na pag sulti or pag communicate sa usag-usa. And then another one, critics and challenges of Kantian ethics is the complexities to applying the categorical imperative. So categorical imperative in the ethics of the 18th century by German philosopher Immanuel Kant, founder of critical philosophy. It is a rule of conduct that is unconditional or absolute for all agents, the validity or claim of which does not depend on any desire or end. Thus, thou shalt not steal, for example, is a categorical, a distinct from the hypothetical imperatives associated with a desire such as do not steal if you want to be popular. For Kant, there was only one categorical imperative in the moral realm, which the formulated which he formulated in two ways. Act only according to that maxim by which you can, at the same time, will that it become a universal law. Is a purely formal or logical statement and expresses the condition of the rationality of conduct rather than that of its morality, by which is expressed in another Kantian formula. So act as to treat humanity, whether to your own person or another, always as an end and never as an only mean. So, cultural variations on moral duty. So, Kantian ethics is based on the idea that moral duties are objective and universal, applying to all rational beings, regardless of their cultural background. So, there are ways. There are 8 ways in which cultural variations can influence the perception and understanding of moral duties to the context of Kantian ethics. One is different culture. So different cultural values reflect the diverse beliefs, norms, principles, and customs that shape societies around the world. These values influence how individuals within a culture perceive the world, interact with others, and make decisions. So, kay paano naman tanga nagkalahi-lahi digital culture sa lugar, sa tradition, sa nagkalahi-lahi tag culture sa lugar, especially sa lugar unsay mga tinuuhan. So we should always respect that in order for us to communicate effectively and efficiency. So wala gyud kapot nga mahitabo if we will understand or adapt the culture of other people. So mga culture is dili man siguro pag makaharm nato. So we should accept that if many culture sa imong amigo, then we should respect because namatay kalahi-lahing culture. 2 is perception of duty. So the concept of duty in Kantian ethics might be understood different in various cultures. Some cultures emphasize duty to family and community over individual moral duties. The emphasis on individual moral responsibility as highlighted in Kantian ethics might conflict with their communal values. So, ang perception of duty is na ubay nga nag-emphasis nga duty la sa family and like po tong duty sa community, like po tong duty sa individual. 3 is collectivism versus individualism. Cultures vary in the degree of collectivism or individualism they endorse. In collectivist cultures, moral duties might be perceived in the context of group harmony and interdependence, While in individualistic cultures, duties may be more centered around individual rights and responsibilities. Naniklong collectivism, daghan as a group, while individualism individual. So 4 is hierarchical societies. In cultures with strong hierarchical structures, the obligations and duties of individuals might differ significantly based on their social status. This hierarchical perspective might conflict with the equal moral worth and dignity of all individuals, as asserted in Kantian ethics. So hierarchical, from top to bottom, different obligations. So ang top is more high power, dagag obligation. So ang bottom is less power, and di man po dasin nga daghan of obligation. So cultural relativism, number 5. Some cultures adhere to the belief of cultural relativism, asserting that moral values are relative to a particular culture and can't be universally applied. This perspective challenges the universal nature of Kantian moral duties. So cultural relativism, sumurag naara sa particular culture nga gi-assert or sa cultural relativism is mga cultures nga same ra pod sa ilang culture bitaw, and dili as in nga makuan og universal kay di ba ang universal is as in whole mga jud kinatibukan na culture. So ang cultural relativism is not a particular culture. So number 6 is application of universalizability. Determining the universalizability of actions, a key principle in Kantian ethics, can be challenging across cultures. Actions that may be considered morally permissible in one culture might not be universally acceptable when cultural variations are taken into account. 7 is cultural traditions and practices. So certain cultural traditions and practices might conflict with Kantian moral principles. For example, rituals or customs in a culture might involve actions that Kantian ethics would consider immoral, raising questions about the applicability of Kantian duties in such contexts. Number 8, cultural bias. So word pa lang na bias. Nagyoy kitapigan, dili fair. Utilitarianism is utilitarianism. So based on the previous reporters, it talks about the happiness of all over happiness of all people. So happy lang yun, Bernie. Introduction to utilitarianism. So utilitarianism is a consequentialist ethical theory that judges the morality of an action based on its consequences, especially the overall happiness or pleasure it produces. So the origins of utilitarianism can be traced back to the works of Jeremy Bentham and later refined and popularized by John Stuart Mill. So Magsugod ta diri ni Jeremy Bentham, 1978 to 1822. Jeremy Bentham, an English philosopher and jurist, is considered the founder of modern utilitarianism. He developed a theory based on the principle of utility, which holds that actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, and wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness. So, Jeremy Bentham nagtuo nga ang right action is makaproduce og happiness. So, inversely, ang wrong action is makaproduce og dili happiness or bad. So some key points about Bentham and his contribution to utilitarianism includes principle of utility, quantitative approach, and legal social reforms. So, sa principle of utility, Bentham's utilitarianism is based on the principle of utility, which states that the best action is the one that maximizes overall happiness or pleasure. Quantitative approach. Bentham advocated for a quantitative approach to measuring pleasure and pain, proposing the concept of hedons as units of pleasure and dolors as units of pain. So, ang hedons is it means nga pleasure, while ang dolors is pain. He developed the hedonic calculus, a method for calculating the overall pleasure or pain produced by an action. Legal and social reforms. Bentham applied utilitarian principles to various aspects of law, advocating for legal and social reforms that would maximize happiness and minimize suffering for the greatest number of people. He argued for the abolition of slavery, animal rights, and prison reform, among other causes. So, ang purpose ni Jeremy Bentham is to produce overall happiness of all the individuals and reduce their sufferings. So, nindot kayo. So, later on, he develop or gi-widen aron mapopularize ang utilitarianism tungod ni John Stuart Mill. John Stuart Mill, a British philosopher and economist, was a prominent advocate and popularizer of utilitarianism in the 19th century. He built upon Bentham's ideas and refined the theory, addressing some of its criticisms and ambiguities. Mill's contributions to utilitarianism include higher and lower pleasure, greatest happiness principle, and individual liberty. Higher and lower pleasures. Mill distinguished between higher and lower pleasures, asserting that intellectual, moral, and cultural pleasures are of higher quality than simple physical pleasures. He argued that the pursuit of higher pleasures should be prioritized in utilitarian decision making. So, greatest happiness principle. Mills famously formulated the principles of utility as the greatest happiness principle, stating that actions are right in proportion as they promote happiness, and wrong as they produce the reverse of happiness. So, naman na dito sa kay Jeremy Bentham. Individual liberty. Mill emphasized the importance of individual liberty within utilitarianism. He argued that individuals should have the freedom to pursue their own happiness as long as their happiness do not harm others, promoting the idea of the harm principle. So individual liberty nindot kayo kay kita as an individual person sa nagajud tayo own happiness. So own happiness nga dili makaharm sa others. Dili makaharm sa others but maka-influence nga maging happy pod ang usa ka individual. So principle of utility, maximizing happiness. Principle of utility aim to maximize happiness. Yes, takol naman na nga ang utility is overall happiness, produces overall happiness and reduces suffering. Action should be judged based the net balance of pleasure over pain. Promotes greatest good for the greatest number. Utilitarianism doesn't focus on individual happiness alone but considers the collective well-being. So ang utilitarianism doesn't focus on individual but talks about universal tanang tao nga dapat makadawat og happiness. So decision should be made by calculating the consequences and choosing the option that maximizes overall happiness. So magbuhat ka yung kag-action, no? Imo sa kasundanawon if kanang imong buhaton is maka-cause man ng happiness, harm ba, sad. So mag-analyze sa ganyan. So it needs decision making so that ang ma-produce na outcome is happiness sa gajod, walay harm, and maka-reduce bad suffering sa individuals. And that ends my topic. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My topic is the calculus of utility. A. Calculating pleasure and pain. So, ang pleasure na ang positive emotion, enjoyment, satisfaction, contentment, fulfillment, happiness, relaxation, and euphoria, comfort, excitement. So, ang meaning sa positive emotion is the feelings that bring about joy, contentment, and satisfaction. And enjoyment is arise when you engage in activities that bring pleasure and satisfaction. And satisfaction is the contentment and fulfillment derived from achieving a goal or experiencing a positive outcome. And contentment is the peaceful and satisfied feeling that comes from appreciating the present moment and being comfortable with what you have. Ang fulfillment is the profound satisfaction and sense of completeness and comes from living in alignment with your values and achieving meaningful goals. Ang happiness is a state of well-being and joy. And relaxation is the state of being free from tension and stress. Ang euphoria is an intense feeling of happiness, excitement, or joy. Ang comfort is the feeling of ease, security, and contentment. It can found in familiar surroundings, supportive relationships. Ang excitement is the intense emotion of anticipation and enthusiasm. Niya ang sa pain, naapod ang negative emotion, suffering, discomfort, dissatisfaction, unhappiness, stress, anxiety, fears, sadness, and transaction. Ang B, hedonistic versus preference utilitarianism. Ang hedonistic utilitarianism focuses on the consequences in terms of pleasure and pain, while preference utilitarianism focuses on satisfaction, individuals' desires, and preference. Both seek to minimize overall well-being but differ in how they measure and evaluate it. Letter C, act and rule utilitarianism. Ang act utilitarianism assesses actions on a case-by-case basis, while an rule utilitarianism evaluates action based on whether they conform to rule or principle that, when followed, generally result in the greatest overall happiness. Ang rule utilitarianism often provides more stable and consistent moral guidelines, whereas act utilitarianism can lead to more situation-specific moral judgment. Ethical decision-making in utilitarianism. Letter A, the greatest happiness principle, known as principle of utility, is the idea that actions are morally right if they promote the greatest overall happiness, and they morally wrong if they lead to more suffering or pain. Ang B, consequentialism focus on outcomes. K points greatest good promote the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Ang utility or happiness, often equated with happiness, pleasure, aim to minimize overall happiness. Ang critic is concerned about the issues such as right, individuals, and justice. Sa letter C, application of utilitarianism to moral dilemmas. Step-by-step guide to apply utilitarianism to moral dilemmas. Number 1 is identify the dilemma. Number 2 is the calculate potential outcomes. 3, assess overall utility. 4, choose the action. 5, consider potential trade-offs. Number 6 is re-evaluate and adapt. Critics and challenges utilitarianism. A. Criticism and measuring happiness. Subjectivity. Ang subjectivity is happiness is a highly subjective and culturally influenced concept and making challenging. Ang cultural bias, variation in the understanding and expression happiness can lead to difficulties. Ang lack of objectivity, unlike more objective measures such as incomes or health, happiness is challenging to measure precisely, leading to concern about its reliability and validity as a metric. B is right-based objectives. Right-based objection emphasize the importance of respecting individual rights, moral principles, and ethical constraints. Valuation of individual rights. Rights of freedom of individuals can be satisfied from the greatest good. Moral integrity. Undermine moral integrity by satisfying actions that are morally objectionable in pursuit of the greatest overall happiness. Problem of prediction. Utilitarianism relies on predicting the consequences of action, which can be highly uncertain. Ang C is moral integrity and rule violation. Moral integrity is the quality of having strong ethical principles and acting in accordance with them. Rule violations typically involve breaking established guidelines or regulations.
Contemporary utilitarianism. Letter A. Utilitarianism approaches in public policy. K. Aspect utilitarianism for policy. Cost-benefit analysis produce a net benefits, increase overall happiness, and provide equality and redistribution, reduce inequality.